Do you know how many continents there are on Earth? It's an easy one, 7. But hold on a second. Aren't Europe and Asia technically part of one large landmass, often referred to as Eurasia? When you glance at the world map, it does look like they're one giant piece of land. Well, scientists think differently. They don't just see the physical bodies of land that rise out of the ocean, they examine the unique types of rock that make up each continent. From a geoscientist's perspective, the number of continents can actually increase. Yes, you heard that right. Lost continents exist, or, at least, they used to. These hidden landmasses are often tucked under modern continents, like a secret hiding in plain sight. Recently, scientists discovered one such ancient continent, and it's called Greater Adria. Greater Adria may sound familiar because it has something to do with the Adriatic Sea, but the story is far more intriguing. This lost continent is entirely buried under Europe today. Long ago, Greater Adria collided with Europe and began to subduct beneath it, disappearing from sight. Today, it lies beneath countries like Italy, Greece, and parts of the Balkans. Interestingly, its size and shape are comparable to that of Greenland, the world's largest island. But how did scientists find this buried continent if it's no longer visible? Greater Adria may be hidden, but it left some important clues. Geoscientists found parts of it embedded in the Alps. Other sections of this ancient landmass are now part of Italy and Croatia, situated along the opposite shores of the Adriatic Sea. Limestone rocks from Greater Adria underwent tremendous transformation after being buried under Europe. Over tens of millions of years, intense heat and pressure altered the limestone, turning it into marble. The marble used in iconic Greek and Roman temples? You guessed it, that's Greater Adria's legacy. The temples you admired on your summer vacation were built using marble from this ancient continent, as a kind of going-away gift from a land long gone. But Greater Adria isn't the only lost continent out there. Others have been hiding in plain sight for centuries. Have you heard of Earth's so-called eighth continent? It's called Zealandia. You might not have come across it because, like Greater Adria, much of it is hidden from view. In fact, about 95% of Zealandia is now submerged beneath the Pacific Ocean. But where exactly is it? Well, its name gives you a good clue. Look near New Zealand. If you pull up Google Maps and examine the ocean floor, you'll notice a lighter shade of blue that stretches from New Caledonia to New Zealand. That's the outline of Zealandia. Though submerged, Zealandia hasn't sunk too deeply beneath the waves, allowing geologists to map its shape. Zealandia is quite large, roughly two-thirds the size of Australia and more than twice the landmass of Greater Adria. Once, it stood above sea level, but tectonic forces slowly pushed it beneath the ocean's surface. You see, the bottom of the ocean isn't flat. Without the water, you'd find mountains, valleys, and trenches deeper than Mount Everest is tall. Some trenches, like the Mariana Trench, are so deep that you could fit Everest inside and still have 7,000 feet between the summit and sea level. These deep ocean trenches form because of a process called subduction. This happens when one tectonic plate sinks beneath another, just like what occurred with Greater Adria and Europe. Earth's crust is made up of large plates that float on molten rock, constantly moving and colliding. When they meet, one often dives beneath the other, reshaping the land in the process. About 120 million years ago, Australia and Antarctica were connected as part of a single landmass. It's hard to imagine today, but the coldest and one of the hottest places on Earth were once neighbors. When Antarctica separated from Australia, it left behind an interesting geological feature called Broken Ridge. This oceanic plateau, or elevated flatland, is located in the Indian Ocean. Once upon a time, Broken Ridge was part of a land bridge connecting India and Antarctica. Over millions of years, this landmass was gradually submerged, but parts of it are still visible today in the form of small, remote islands. Speaking of islands, let's talk about Madagascar. Most people assume that this island off the southeastern coast of Africa was once part of the African continent. But, believe it or not, Madagascar used to be attached to India. About 120 million years ago, India and Madagascar split from Africa, with Madagascar lagging behind as India journeyed northeastward. Madagascar eventually became an island, but evidence of this long-lost connection remains. While Madagascar became an island, scientists have found evidence of another lost continent buried beneath the Indian Ocean, called Mauritius. Today, the island of Mauritius sits on top of what was once a bustling volcanic hotspot. Scientists discovered traces of this ancient landmass in the form of minerals buried deep beneath Mauritius. The land of Mauritius once stretched from the island to the west coast of India. If this land existed today, it would have made for a fascinating mix of Indian and African cultures, not to mention an exciting fusion of flavors in the local cuisine. Now, let's shift our focus to Southeast Asia. About 50,000 years ago, this region looked very different. There were no islands like Sumatra, Borneo, or Java, and Australia wasn't a separate continent. Instead, there were two massive landmasses, Sunda and Sahul. These continents were separated by a deep water trench. On one side, you had the extension of mainland Southeast Asia, and on the other, you had Greater Australia. Biologists were among the first scientists to notice that species on these two landmasses evolved quite differently. That's why Australia is home to unique animals like kangaroos, wombats, and platypuses. And did you know that a giant kangaroo once roamed the island of New Guinea? During the last ice age, there was a land bridge connecting New Guinea to Australia, allowing species to migrate. But today, the Torres Strait separates the two islands. Another oceanic strait, the Bering Strait, separates Asia from North America. But during the last ice age, this area was a land bridge called Beringia. Beringia wasn't enormous, stretching only about 1,000 miles from north to south. But it played a crucial role in connecting the world. During the ice ages, when sea levels were 300 feet lower than they are today, Beringia provided a land route for humans and animals to migrate between Asia and North America. In fact, if sea levels dropped even lower, you could theoretically walk from Africa's Cape of Good Hope all the way to South America's Cape Horn, a truly epic journey. But Earth hasn't always looked the way it does today. About 300 to 200 million years ago, all of the continents were part of a single supercontinent called Pangaea. The name Pangaea comes from the Greek word for all Earth, and it's a fitting description for this massive landmass that included every continent we know today. Over time, though, Pangaea began to break apart. The biggest gap formed between the Americas on one side and Europe and Africa on the other. As the continents drifted, seawater rushed in to fill the void, giving rise to the Atlantic Ocean. Believe it or not, this process is still happening today. North America continues to drift away from Europe at a rate of about 1 inch per year. It may not seem like much in a human lifetime, but over millions of years, it adds up. Eventually, all the continents will reconnect, forming another supercontinent. But that's far in the future, and for now, we'll just have to marvel at the remnants of these lost continents, buried beneath our feet. That's it for today. If you enjoyed discovering these hidden wonders of our planet, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Discovery Waves for more amazing content. And hey, if you're still curious, just click on one of these videos and dive deeper into the mysteries of Earth.